Republicans are promising to fight the Biden administration's decision to lift Title 42 in court and in Congress. Joining us now, Texas Congressman Michael McCaul of Texas, top Republican on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Congressman, welcome back to Fox News Sunday. Good to have you here.
Thanks, Sandra.
All right, so first off, are Republicans going to retake the House?
We feel very confident. I think the polling shows this. We're historically, as well, the party out of power in the first term in the White House will pick up seats. All we need is 5. I predict we're going to get probably at least 40 seats because this president has been so unpopular when it comes to inflation, gas prices. In my reign, the foreign policy mistakes that he's made. And quite frankly, Sandra, they just see him as a weak president.
Well, you have certainly been hammering this administration over its handling specifically of the situation at the southern border. But what concrete steps, Congressman, does your party plan to take on immigration if you do indeed flip the House and the Senate this fall?
Well, you know, I worked with the prior administration, President Trump, to install the migrant protection protocols, remain in Mexico. It was working. 85% of these illegals coming up don't have a claim for political asylum. So 85% are kicked out of the system. They had to remain in Mexico, so therefore they didn't touch base in the United States where they would be given what's called catch and release. It's as simple as that. I've urged Mayorkas, he knows better. He was a U.S. attorney in a border state. So was I. He knows what is causing this, but he's refusing to go back to this policy, that was working. And, this is what we need to do. I don't think Mexico, though, will agree to do this again. They did under Trump, and it was working, and I'm not sure it's going to work under this administration. We've had 2.5 million people cross into this border illegally since the president's been inaugurated. Title 42 being lifted means 500,000 over the next 5 weeks. My state of Texas, we just simply can't absorb this. I mean, I was over in Poland, for God's sakes, looking at all the Ukrainians coming out, and it's almost a similar amount, 2.5 million people. Yeah. Although in that case, they want to go back home. And, Putin invaded Ukraine. We have an invasion in my home state, right on the border, every day. 2.5 million.
Congressman, I'll ask you the question I just asked Congressman Cuellar. Have you directly heard from Mayorkas any of his concerns? It is reported that he is speaking privately about that behind closed doors. Has he shared those with you? Yes, I
have, and I don't want to divulge too much of that, but he's very frustrated. When he went down to the border and Border Patrol agents turned their backs on him, that is really humiliating for a Secretary of Homeland Security. And then you listen to Jay Johnson, who I worked with when I was chairman of Homeland Security, who I have a lot of respect for, saying that, man, if I had 1,000 coming over a day, that was a really bad day. But now they got 7,000 a day. And he says, in his words, that not only can Catholic Charities and Border Patrol not handle this and they're overwhelmed, but he also says that the Biden administration politically is going to be overwhelmed. And that's why you're seeing down in the Valley, in my home state, a lot of Democrats now going to the Republican Party.
Interesting. House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy is leading a delegation to the southern border tomorrow, along with Congressman Elise Stefanik, who was originally scheduled to be on this program. He says the president's policies are only making the situation there worse. What do you hope comes from this visit, Congressman?
Well, I was a federal prosecutor down there. I know the border, seen it many times. Sandra, this is the absolute worst I've ever seen it. 2.5 million people coming in. Who's coming in? We don't even know. And now we're going to let them in, as we debate a COVID package, let them in without even being tested. When I travel abroad, I have to be tested before I come back, into the country. And, and there are criminals like the 2 narco traffickers that the Texas National Guard tried to save, then drowned, in the process. But, what's even worse are these fentanyls. We've apprehended enough fentanyls to kill the entire, population of the United States 7 times over. My oldest daughter has been to 4 funerals of this happening. You know, buying Xanax, and it has, you know, fentanyls in them. This is becoming an epidemic, not to mention that this is the largest human trafficking crisis that I've ever witnessed. And what's sad is that the federal government is complicit, because we basically end the last part of the trip. We pick the children up and then send them into the interior of the United States. And so we're actually complicit with this human trafficking.
All right. Well, that will all play a big part, obviously, in the midterm elections. House Republicans have yet to release a major policy agenda ahead of the midterms. How do you plan to work with the White House if you do end up taking control of the chamber? Do you see this as an opportunity to block the Biden agenda, or one to enact your own?
Well, we can enact our own, and then the White House will probably veto it. I worked very well with Secretary Jay Johnson when I chaired Homeland Security. We saw this, try to take the politics out of it and put good policy in place. And, you know, when all is said and done, this was a self-inflicted wound when the president rescinded on day one President Trump's migrant protection protocols and remained in Mexico, which actually brought it to a grinding halt. We had this situation for the first time under control. And I told Mayorkas, I said, you can call it whatever you want. You can brand it a Biden administration policy. But if you don't go back to this, you're going to continue to have this bleeding and this, you know, human trafficking crisis.
So many more issues to deal with as well. Obviously, inflation and taxes front and center. The White House pounced on National Republican Congressional Committee Chair Rick Scott's tax plan this week. Take a look. Congressional Republicans' plan will increase middle-class families' taxes an average of nearly $1,500 this year alone, and take $100 billion out of the hands of middle-class families each year. Do you think Senator Scott campaigning on his own plan that Republican leaders haven't endorsed is hurting the party politically, Congressman?
Yeah, look, we like good ideas within the party, and then we kind of shake it out, right? So it sounds like a pretty good plan to me, and we'll take a look at it. I do think, though, Sandra, you're correct. We need to be unified in our platform. What we're doing in the House is very different from the Senate. Senate runs around like rogue, you know, operators. We have a plan. Kevin McCarthy and I, after my China task force recommendations, we're setting up task forces on every issue facing the American people that will be announced in August with a specific plan of action and legislative plan of action. We don't want power for power's sake. We want power to change the course of this country against Biden's failed policies. And that's what we're going to deliver in August, and we're going to go and campaign on it in